Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. We always try to cater each episode to what our listeners are interested in, and guess what? Today's all about becoming a virtual assistant in the Philippines. We hear you. Starting a whole new career path online can seem a bit like, oh gosh, how do I even begin? And yeah, it's definitely a big decision.
Well, you're right about that. It can be a little intimidating to think about jumping into something totally new, especially in the online world. But the cool thing is that more and more Filipinos are finding amazing success as VAs.
And for good reason. I was reading this article about how something like 75% of Filipino VAs end up earning more than they did in their old jobs. Not only that, but many of them are able to transition to being full-time VAs within just a year. That's what I call taking charge of your life and your income.
Absolutely, and that's just scratching the surface. What we're going to do today is break down this whole process into steps that actually make sense. We'll cover the skills you'll need, how to get started even if you're starting small, and how to deal with those worries that everyone has when they're thinking about a big career change. By the end of this deep dive, you'll have a way better idea of what it really takes to make it as a Filipino VA.
Sounds like a plan. The first thing that really stood out to me in all this research is that you don't have to be a tech genius to get started. They actually emphasize that starting simple is key, even if you feel like you're kind of lost at first. Everyone starts somewhere.
Right, exactly. And there are tons of free resources online specifically for Filipinos who want to become VAs. Think YouTube tutorials on everything from setting up your workspace to finding those first few clients.
Okay, those are always helpful.
And then you've got these amazing Facebook groups filled with Filipino VAs where you can connect with people, ask questions, and get advice from those who've actually been there.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. One of the articles even suggested just spending like an afternoon browsing those Facebook groups or watching some YouTube videos just to get a feel for it all. It's like testing the water before you dive in.
Love that analogy. And as you're exploring, you'll start to see that a lot of the skills you need to be a VA are totally learnable. Like think about managing emails, scheduling stuff, and getting comfortable with programs like Canva and Microsoft Office, all things you can learn step by step.
I love that. It's like you can build your own custom skill set as you go. Kind of like a career, choose your own adventure. And speaking of choosing, a lot of the stuff I read recommended picking just one skill to really master in the beginning, like maybe setting a goal of becoming an email marketing pro on a platform like MailChimp. They say those small, achievable goals really help build confidence. What do you think about that approach?
I think it's brilliant. Breaking down a big goal, like starting a new career into smaller steps, makes it way less scary. And speaking of things that can feel a little scary, one of the biggest worries people have when they think about becoming a VA is
What's that?
the money part. A lot of people stress about how much it's going to cost to get set up, especially when it comes to equipment. You need a good laptop and reliable internet. Those aren't really optional these days.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially in the Philippines. Internet access can be tricky sometimes.
Yeah,
Did our sources have any tips on how to handle that?
definitely. And what's interesting is they all said you don't have to break the bank buying top-of-the-line gear right away. Some folks even recommended starting with whatever you already have, like borrowing a laptop from a family member or friend, or, maybe putting aside a little bit of money each month until you can afford a good setup.
I like that, being resourceful. It's like working smarter, not harder, but with your startup costs. I bet there's some other things people worry about when they're starting something new like this, though.
Right. Totally. Actually, the sources we looked at were really honest about the mental and emotional side of becoming a VA. Self-doubt is a big one. It's so easy to get caught up in those thoughts like, can I really do this? Or what if I'm not good enough?
Ugh, the imposter syndrome struggle is real.
It is. And that's where being part of the Filipino VA community can be so helpful. I was amazed by how much the sources talked about the importance of community. There are so many Facebook groups, forums, and even mentorship programs just for Filipino VAs. It's like having your own built-in cheer squad that gets what you're going through.
That's so awesome. It must make such a difference to know you're not in this alone. Did any of the sources have like specific examples of how this community support thing actually plays out?
You know what? There was this one story about a Filipina VA who was feeling totally lost and unsure of herself when she first started. She joined a Facebook group and boom, she was instantly welcomed in. More experienced VAs were giving her tips, sharing resources, and even helping her land her first clients. It's like having a network of mentors and friends all in one.
I love that story. It shows how powerful being part of a community can be, especially when you're trying something new and you're feeling a little bit vulnerable. It's like having a safety net while you're figuring things out.
Exactly. And that kind of brings us to the core of what makes being a VA so appealing, right? It's not just about the money. It's about having the freedom and flexibility to create a life that works for you.
Right on. A lot of what we read talked about how Filipino VAs are choosing to work from home, set their own hours, and spend more time with their families. It's like they're taking back control of their lives. It's amazing.
It really is. And I think that's a huge part of why so many Filipinos are jumping into this world.
So we've talked about starting simple, using free resources, building skills one step at a time, being resourceful with your money, and finding that amazing Filipino VA community. What really stuck with you from all this research?
You know what really hit me? It's all about mindset. So much of succeeding as a VA comes down to believing in yourself, being willing to learn and adapt, and being okay with not knowing everything right off the bat.
I love that. Such an important message. But let's be real. It also takes a lot of dedication and commitment, doesn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. Building a solid VA career is not some get-rich-quick scheme. It's about putting in the work, sticking with it, and being open to constantly learning and growing.
True. But from what we've seen, it seems like the rewards are definitely worth it. Who wouldn't want more time with loved ones, a flexible schedule, and the chance to make a good living doing something you actually enjoy?
I think a lot of people are realizing those things aren't just pipe dreams anymore. The whole online work scene is making it possible for Filipinos to achieve that. And it's not just about personal success, it's about contributing to the economy in a whole new way.
For sure. It's like this wave of empowerment and creativity. So many Filipino VAs are becoming entrepreneurs, building businesses and creating jobs for other people. It's inspiring.
It is, and it all goes back to taking that first step, even if it seems small. Just watching a YouTube tutorial or joining a Facebook group can unlock so many opportunities.
Totally.
Hmm.
It's all about taking action one small step at a time. It's really cool to see how many different ways there are to be a VA. It's not like there's just one right way to do it. You mentioned that thing about choosing a specific skill to focus on.
Yeah, that's where niching down comes in.
Niching down. What's that all about?
Well, it's basically instead of trying to do a million different things, you pick one area or specialty where you have some real talent and where you actually enjoy what you're doing. So like, let's say you're super organized and you love managing social media. You could become a social media manager for small businesses.
Okay, I see.
Or if you're like a Canva whiz and you love designing graphics, you could niche down into graphic design for entrepreneurs.
So it's all about finding that thing you're really good at, your superpower, and then building a whole business around it. I love that. Did our sources mention any other popular niches for VAs?
Oh yeah, for sure. Virtual assistant work covers so many different areas. Some other popular ones are things like email marketing, customer support, bookkeeping, and even web design.
Wow, so many options. For someone who's just starting out, how do you even know which niche is right for you?
That's the million-dollar question. And luckily, our sources had some good advice about that. One of the biggest things they said was to think about what you're already good at and what you're passionate about. Like, what do you enjoy doing? What comes naturally to you? Then try to figure out how those skills could be turned into a service you can offer clients.
So it's all about matching your skills with what people actually need.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to try different things. You might start out thinking you want to be a social media manager, but then realize you're actually way more into bookkeeping or something. It's all part of the journey.
That's a great point. Being open to new possibilities and trusting that you'll find the right path for you. This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. I've learned so much about Filipino VAs. It's incredible.
Me too. And it's important to remember that every single successful VA out there was once right where you are now. They were just as excited and maybe a little bit nervous about getting started. The biggest thing is to just take that first step. Be open to learning new things and don't ever stop believing in yourself.
And of course, tap into that incredible Filipino VA community that's out there.
Exactly. The Filipino VA community it's amazing how supportive and resourceful they are, and they're always pushing the limits of what's possible online.
So well said. So if you're listening and you're feeling inspired to take the leap into the world of virtual assisting, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
I'd say don't let fear get in your way. The world of online work is out there, and the possibilities really are endless.
So go for it. Jump in, explore, learn, connect. Who knows? Maybe you'll be sharing your own VA success story one day.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.